Remember to subscribe to our Zoom Catchers YouTube channel and follow us on our socials. Greetings and welcome to Conversations on Aging Season 2. I'm your host, Kimberly Gunn with Zoom Catchers. Thanks so much for watching, sharing our content, and continuing to believe in the power of podcasting to make positive impacts on our world. This season, we have another lineup of great guests, many of them artists, writers, and actors, to share their aging journeys with us. Today, we're talking with Jimmy Santiago Baca, who is an award-winning writer, poet, humanitarian, and all-around cool person, coming to us all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Jimmy has written numerous books, including A Place to Stand, and his story has been turned into a movie, Blood In, Blood Out, which recently celebrated its 30th anniversary. You know what we say, we're never too young to think about aging. So let's welcome Jimmy Santiago Baca, author, poet, and father, here to discuss his aging journey. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy and so pleased to welcome Jimmy Santiago Baca to the Zoom Catchers virtual studio. Jimmy, how are you doing today?
Doing good.
Good. Are you staying cool? Because I know that it's about, what is it, like 150 degrees where you are right now.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. The house is cool. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and joining the conversations on aging. Our tagline is we're never too young to talk about aging. And I know for a lot of people, they don't like talking about it. It's a taboo subject. But this season, we're leaning into artists and your process and how the aging process has informed you now as an adult. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to you for all the projects that you got going on. I know you got a play, you have a new manuscript you're working on, and then Blood In, Blood Out just celebrated its 30th anniversary. So, hats off to you. And my first question is, how do you keep doing it, Jimmy? What's the secret to your success?
Just discipline. A routine. You get used to a routine. You stick to it. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my life. I think I'm doing at least, I don't know, 50 times better than I was doing in my 50s or 30s.
Really?
Yeah, I walk 4.5 miles every other day, and I bike 20 miles every other day, and I write every morning, and I lift weights once a week, and I swim, and then I do my work. So yeah, I'm doing good.
Wow. That is great to hear. You hear that, everybody? Many people are figuring out to exercise and daily workouts is great for overall health. And I wanted to ask you just about, you're a lot of people know about your history and how you came up in the world. And how do you now perceive your younger self when you look back on the experiences that you had and to, look at where you are now? Did you expect to be in this position now? Did you expect to be here now doing this?
I don't think I expected to be doing anything anytime during my life. I didn't have expectations as much as I had enthusiasm for the present. So I would be doing something, and I don't like thinking of my life as in a career frame of mind. I like thinking about my life on the project that I'm doing. And I don't think about the money that's involved, or I don't think about whether I'm going to get money or not get money. I think about how just the whole idea of throwing myself into a project creates its own environment in which I exist. And those environments aren't predicated on profit margins or fame or success as much as they are on how much I'm enjoying doing what I do. Yeah.
Mhm. And you would say that at this stage in your life, you still obviously enjoy doing all the writing that you do and working on these various projects. You still got the energy for it and you're going for it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because so much of what comes my way is unexpected. It's not, I don't, age age is predictable. When you get older, your bones are gonna ache a little bit. You're gonna be slower getting out of bed. You're going to get a little more tired. You'll need a couple of naps instead of one nap. So you have to adjust according to what your body's going through. You don't you don't put as many long hours in as you normally would. Um, you have to let go of some habits and create new habits. You have to eat better. You can't just always eat. You have to stay moving around and stuff. And so you have to balance out the intellectual work with the physical movement. So I don't run. I mean, I don't walk competitively. I used to run every day, but then my body was telling me that I can't do that anymore. So I went from running 2 miles to walking 4.5 miles, and that was easier on my body. And then I became a little bit more conscientious of taking some vitamins when I needed them. I'm a big tea drinker now. You have to acknowledge your age, not in the sense that you begrudge it, but in a sense of how can you best make use of it. So in my case, as a creative artist, when I write something, what age, the influence that age has on what I'm working on is I bring a lot of experience to it. And I don't have to fill it with youthful ego. I can actually sort of leave myself out of it and really try to work for the integrity of the piece itself. So age gives me distance from my own ego, and it gives me perspective on what I'm working on and how to best make that piece stand on its own without using all the mechanisms that craft offers you, as opposed to embellishing it with my own aggrandizement, you know?
When would you say that that turning point kind of shifted for you as a writer? I mean, I'm assuming, based on what you said, that as a younger writer, you may have had different motivations sometimes, but what would you say was the turning point for you where you decided that you were really going to lean into your experience and the
Well,
different journey that you've been on?
everybody has to come to a decision in their 50s or 60s. I'm not sure. Some people hit it at different times, but everybody comes to the decision in your 50s and 60s that you're getting older. You're going to have to deal with life in a different way. A lot of people will not be able to transition, and they'll increase their bad habits, stay on the couch, drink beer, do cocaine, stay up late partying, stay in bed late in the morning. They lose perspective on on what they're being called upon to do in life. Other people will just withdraw into this got to take care of myself, over the top kind of, ooh, nestled in, don't want to take any risks, don't want to take any chances. They seem to think that when that pivotal moment comes, when they're going downhill instead of uphill, and a change is needed, a change is called upon, some people just give up on life. They leave their wives, or they no longer care about themselves, or they quit, their job. They retire from their job, and they're like, they get really really loose with their health. Their hygiene goes. They have very little inspiration. They see life through the lens of despair, that everything that they've tried to accomplish, that they dreamed of doing, never got done. And so they're hit with the hypocrisy of life, and how it comes as the irony of life, how you were so filled with inspiration when you were young, and all of a sudden you hit that middle age, and you have a big choice to either pursue improving yourself and doing the best you can at what you're doing with a passion. Suddenly you lose your passion for life. I've seen a lot of those people do that, and they deteriorate quickly into easy pleasures. They indulge in what can get you high, or get you laid, or taste, eat a piece of cake and late at night, and on and on and on and on. And they just succumb to this easy fulfillment that steadily destroys them. They go to the doctor, and the doctor says, your blood pressure's up, your cholesterol's up, you got too much sugar, and you got to go on medication. So a lot of these people will resort to pharmaceuticals, not to keep a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle going, but to keep on doing what their old habits are mandating them to do. And then you have the other people who see the midpoint in life as being an opportunity to really pursue their passions. They get up early, they go walk for a couple of miles or whatever, they come back, they start working on a piece. I speak as a writer now, as a poet. They start working on a new piece and they're excited about it. They excel, they go get on their bike, they go down the river and they write. And it's a growing discipline that has its payoffs gradually. It's not instant gratification. It's gradually increases your sense of well being. And then when you look at your aging process through that lens, you see it as an opportunity to really become who you want to become in life. That you only had a little bit of a chance to do that. And now with more time on your hands, you can actually do what you want to do. And you don't need a lot of money. Money, it's a myth. You don't need a lot of money. When you have a lot of money, your attention is directed toward keeping that money moving. You rent the houses that you own, you make sure your tenants are okay. You're worried about this, you're worried about that. You got to fix this. This one's falling apart. You got to go fix that. You have conflicts with people over business matters. You go to bed worried about that. You go to bed worried about overextending yourself, and you never get back to what you really love doing, yeah, which is just for yourself. And a lot of people don't even know. They're not even capable of realizing what is it is that they love doing because they never had the opportunity to do that. So they don't know what they love doing, and that becomes a real problem because the complacency of keeping a relationship going that suits you deteriorates you. So if you keep a relationship going by accommodation, if you're accommodating it, if you're like okay with it, you're never going to grow out of it. So a lot of people at the midpoint they stop growing. And I guess that would be a definition of age. While we think of age as growing older, really what it is you stop growing as a human being, and then the result of that is that you get old. But if you don't stop growing and you're 70 or 80, you get younger and younger inside your heart. So that's the sort of irony, a contradiction, and you notice it in all kinds of people. If you've gotten who you are through using bureaucratic power, say that you're a lawyer and the power that you have is in court, and you charge people to represent them in criminal court for DUIs or whatever it is. You're constantly trying to pursue them to make sure that they pay you and stuff like that, but you don't take care of yourself. Most of the things that people do in their 50s and 60s takes away from their health, detracts from their well-being. And that to me is sort of a strange thing. You would think that what you want to do and do would add to your enrichment, would enhance your living. And yet in this country, like I have friends in other countries who are just love getting up, walking the beach in the morning, and then writing all day and reading books and socializing. And they don't think about competitive capitalism. They don't think about accumulating capitalism. They're in the middle of life, and they've become a character in their own narrative, in the narrative of life. And the character in the narrative of life is really deepening the knowledge of who they are. So it's very cool. It's really cool that you can shift out of this other dimension where you're defined by your possessions, and then you shift out of that where you begin to define yourself by your harmony with nature, by your nobility, by your sense of pleasure that you have about being who you are.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that. We're here with Jimmy Santiago Baca, who is laying down so much wisdom and so many jewels here. Really appreciate you being here. I know you're super, super busy. Did want to ask you about something that you just brought up. You were talking about, taking risks as an artist. Do you feel that now, at this stage in your life, in your career, that you're taking more creative risks?
Yeah, the older you get as an artist, the more you return to your childhood curiosity. I don't think I don't think you could define childhood without the word curiosity. And if you do define childhood without the word curiosity, then you're dealing with trauma, a traumatic child, some child who's been assaulted spiritually where they can't risk doing something that they're not quite sure what the result of that may be. And I think as an artist, the older you get, I think the more intense you want to risk an idea. You want to put your idea into the forum and see how that works out, you know?
That's the perfect segue into, one of your creative projects that I'd love to talk about, have you share more about, and that is Redemption Times, correct? Redemption Times.
Redemption time.
Redemption Time. And was this your first piece for a theatrical type, theater piece, or had you done any type of theater pieces before? And tell our audience more about Redemption Time, please.
There was some guy, some crazy white boy that had read one of my books in prison when he was in Ohio. And it seemed to have really given him a lift at a time in his life when despair was starting to weigh down on him pretty heavy. And he never forgot that book or that experience. He met me, and accidentally, I went to a musical show, and I saw him playing. And when the main guy in the band yelled out, "Hey, Mr. Baca's in the audience," this guy just kind of went nuts and then told me the experience. I thought it would be good, man, if we could manifest that in some genre. And so I have a friend of mine who put up a couple of 100,000, and we all met in North Carolina, and we spent a month rehearsing, and we hired a film crew, and it's called Redemption Time. It's about 90 minutes, and it's about that journey of him being influenced by my work and me changing through the power of language. It's called Redemption Time. We're going to premiere it August 28th at the Museum of New Mexico Art. You're welcome to come, Kim, by the way.
Awesome. I'll put it on my calendar because I've been fortunate enough to see some a version of it. I really love it. It's
I'm
compelling.
gonna send I'm gonna send you the final versions for you to see it. They really improved it. It looks really good.
I loved it. I think it was, it leads me to a topic that I'd love to talk to you more about because it was so prevalent in the piece, and that is, the power of writing to transform people's lives. And when what was the point in your life where you realized that as a writer you could transform not only your life but the life of other people?
I don't know. I don't know. When I write something, people react to it in different ways. Like I could write poetry and bring out the scintillating existence that resides in rocks. Or I could write a poem about two individuals talking about a tree, and one of the verse lines I could bring out the magic of that conversation. But I choose not to write that type of poetry because that type of poetry is the sort of elitist kind of poetry in a world where there's so many people who need poetry that is pertaining to their lives, their emotions, their dreams, their despair, their hopes. So much poetry is needed in that other arena, that other forum, that I don't want to waste my time talking about the elitist ignitions that occur in language that you can manipulate in such ways where the poem becomes pure and without contamination by human frailties, human flaws. I like poetry with human flaws. And so most of the people who are getting awards, uh, a lot of them in the poetry world, try to write a type of poem that they say is not intended to heal anyone, that it's not intended to connect with anyone, that it's not intended to refer to anyone's history, that it's not intended to appeal to the emotions. They like to say, oh, this is a type of poetry that we have scaffolded. It's a scaffolding. We scaffolded into something new. Like we use words and we put words together in such a way where, and really basically what they're trying to cover up is that they have no lives. They don't have a life, and they don't have a backstory, and they don't have a history. Because on the other hand, you have people who write poetry and they come to the page with experience, with life, with history, with trauma, with fear, with love, with uncertainties, and they put those into the work, and those people are loved by the readership. The other side of the fence, you have the intellectuals who look at these other lifeless poems and go, ah, yes, this abstraction. This is very nice the way he did this. Do you feel the power come out of that? And really, what they're trying to teach is a type of poetry that leaves life out of it. And they like to play and doodle with language in such a way where the people who have all the money and all the awards and are giving them out are not threatened by any sort of comments, any sort of beliefs, any sort of passions against injustice, against racism, against homelessness, against lack of health care. They're not threatened by that because they're the ones who are sitting on the pot of gold. They don't want anybody taking their money. So the more poetry they can talk about that has the individual reader not thinking about the injustices of the world, the more they're allowed to give those awards out and money out to people. So you have the MacArthur's, oh my God, MacArthur's, this guy's, and then you have this white boy writing about stones up in, the Mojave Desert, and oh my God, this is so beautiful. You know, you have maybe 30 people reading the book, but it wins the National Book Award. And what you don't realize, what the reader doesn't realize, is it's only got 30 people reading the book. But the advertising and the marketing behind that book makes it seem to the reader that everybody's reading it and that this is the kind of poem we should read. So 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 the aging reader reads that and says, "Oh, it's very nice. It's titillating my intellectual compartments upstairs. This poem is titillating it." But it doesn't do for the aging reader to look at it and say, "Oh, I should start tutoring in juvenile halls and teaching these kids how to read and write." That kind of poem moves the reader to do something with his life. That kind of poem fights against aging. That kind of poem gives life to those who are giving up, as opposed to those little titillating nonsense poems that lack life and don't give life and promote themselves as life. It's the same thing as these people who speak out of the side of their mouth.
Mm,
I believe in justice, and the next thing they're doing is they're throwing out people who can't afford the rent.
right, right. Or engaging in criminal activity of their own.
Big time,
There's a
big
lot of
time.
hypocrisy in our society.
Yeah. But anyway, that's good. That's kind of like what I think. Yeah.
I do want to just ask you a follow-up question about that because I think, there are a lot of writers out there that are obviously worrying about getting that bestseller to get that money to pay bills. And, what kind of advice would you have for people who need to think about that versus also, putting out content that's going to have an impact more in the lines of what you're talking about? How do you strike that balance?
I don't know. It's pretty normal. I mean, you got to get your hustle on. I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's so absurd. It's so absurd to think I'm going to be a writer, but I want to be taken care of. That's such bullshit. You want to be a writer, asshole? Then get used to putting your tongue in the gutter and licking up the coffee grinds that people throw out the window. Because,
Mm.
dude, what is this bullshit about? Oh my God, I'm suffering. Of course you're suffering. You're going to be a writer, you idiot. I mean, it's so stupid
Writers
to
are
believe,
suffering.
and,
It's in
and
your DNA.
this whole idea that great American novel is so absurd because there's no such thing as a great American novel. There's a lot of different Americans. There's black, there's brown, there's Asian, there's LGBTQ, there's every kind of, you know, whether or not you write something that's true to your heart should really be the measure, not whether you're going to make a lot of money on it. Because I got to be honest with you, I would say 9 out of 10 people in New York that are reading books and publishing them, they don't have a clue about anything outside of their nearsightedness. They don't have a clue about anything going on west of the Mississippi. They don't have a clue about the importance of Buffalo with the environment. They don't have a clue about the Rio Grande, just the Hudson. They see the Hudson's everything. I mean, these people on the East Coast live in small apartments. People in the West out here, we live outside. We have big spaces. When I told him I needed to get 30 boxes of books, he was like, well, where are you going to store them? I said, I got enough room to store 50,000. We live with space. as our friend. We have space. We move around. In New York, you've got to. I mean, you're constantly butting your dick against somebody else's ass because you can't move around in the apartment.
You hear that, New Yorkers? Come out to the West. We got space. You don't have to
We got
do what Jimmy
space.
just said.
I mean, that's what good stories are. When you enter when you enter into a story, you're entering into space. Where something happens, and I mean, just imagine if all of Neruda's poems or Lorca's poems or Savinas's poems, or imagine if Tolstoy or Chekhov or Turgenev, imagine if all of these people didn't talk about life, if they just talked about stones or trees, or look at that deer out my window, like this guy in Santa Fe talks about deers out his window. When in Santa Fe they're throwing all these people out of their homes because the rich are moving in. Imagine all of these great writers if they didn't talk about life in their poems or in their works. If Tolstoy didn't have War and Peace, if Chekhov didn't have his short stories, there would be no literature. No, there'd be no Russian literature. So so the whole idea that abstract lack of life poems is being hailed as the poetry of our times and stuff, it's just another myth for the elite to fill their boring lives with when they go at night. It's like no one's writing them. I mean, no one's talking about them. No one's. You can translate one poem, one of their books, into 30 languages. At the end of the day, kids are using it to wipe their ass in the cornfields because they have no toilet paper. I mean, or they're starting fires with the pages. They're not passing down the poems to their grandkids, saying, "Look at this, man. This is going to help us get through tomorrow's bombing. This is going to help us get through your sister's murder." When the Israelis bombed this hospital and killed, you know, what was it, 3,000 young babies? This is going to help you get by that trauma. They're not telling you that with their poem. They're telling you, oh, everything is okay. We just got to focus on the crystals and describing the crystal. It's just crazy.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you're a super busy person. I just have a couple more topics I want to get to, and that is Blood In, Blood Out, your big anniversary that you just had. And what was it like, reconnecting with the director and the cast? And congratulations on that.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, we did the Blood and Blood Out book. It's sold out. It's in its third printing in less than 3 months, and it's doing great. And it's on Hulu. It's on Max. It's on Disney, and they brought the movie back out of the archives. And there's 50,000 people opening up shops that are selling Blood and Blood Out clothing and shoes, and it's just had an amazing resurgence. Congress nominated it as one of the great American films. I'm working on Blood and Blood Out 2 now, and it's just been great. I got to go to Los Angeles, meet the actors again. The director is a good friend of mine, doing great. It's just fabulous. Yeah, the reception to the book was phenomenal.
That's great. Can't wait to check it out. I know it's for lack of a better word, a cult classic for a lot of people, and it's a great
Yeah,
story. And it's great to have this big anniversary. And I know you're busy with some more writing projects. So what's coming out? What's in the dock? What's getting ready? And can you read something from it? Tell us and tell our audience about what you're working on right now.
I just finished the first draft of a trilogy, and I'll read you the first page or so. And I just finished the first draft. And then I think we can close with that. I mean, after I read it. So here, I'm going to go off. I'll read you the opening to the trilogy, okay?
Okay.
Called The Child of the Times. And it opens up like this: read, write, run, and rest. These are the four cornerstones of my life. I learned to read at the age of 21, no bookstores or library. The first thing I read was a grammar book and dictionary. Then I read what other convicts were done reading, and the material ranged from white trash racism of Jesse Helms to Castro's leftist revolution manifestos, Baba named Karoli spirituality to Diocesan orgies. But nothing impacted me with such earth-shaking enthusiasm to want to be a poet than the Russian novelists, French surrealists, Mexican, American, and Latin American poets. I wanted to write like them. I wanted to be them. After a morning reading, I'd open up my notepad on my lap and with a pencil scribble the first line of a story, play with words in a stanza, pour my soul out in a letter, and spend the next week editing and rewriting, getting closer to what I meant, experiencing the soul crushing magic of words and how they changed depending on the environment you placed them in. Sometimes, holding my breath back, I'd finesse a word to fit into a verse. Other times, gasping, smash down on the word like a player's finger on piano keys, shaking the whole piano with breathless passion. And then I'd go out and I'd run. 110 scorching heat in the Arizona desert where I was imprisoned. Then, after release, continuing on for decades, no matter where I found myself in snow, Arctic winds, sandstorms, rainforests, prairie roads, beaches, high rise hotel treadmills, cheap clackety clip grindstones, mountain trails, river and ditch banks, golf courses and parks. Where Forrest Gump quit, I just kept on for another 40 years. And after I take a sweet, sweet nap. This has been my routine for 50 years. Nothing changed these pillars of fate through which my life poured. And the best of pensive times trickling in soft, supple supplications, then other times raging in maniacal madness, flooding and drowning everything in sight. I was a late starter. Most had read the books when teens that I was just getting to at 50. But once I did in my 60s, which for me was good since I had a lot of emotional growing up to do, my advantage was that they may have access to books and grammar teachers, but I had experience. I could attach words to my experience and therein witness the light, the radiance of meaning. The words paid tribute to my experience. No longer was I suffocating in my swamp of sensations, but made the green leaf on the tree tangible on the page. Usually, through my 40s, 50s, and early 60s, I might read a book and then not read for 3 months, or write for a week and then not write for 6 months. It took me decades to acquire a habit that anchored me in day to day reading and writing, but once I did, Don Quixote's exuberant passion to imbue everything in his travels with an aspect of nobility became mine. I bequeathed to me Huckleberry's enthusiasm for adventure that was so central to my own character. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Chekhov brought me into a new world, guided and influenced my life through the hostile endangerments that snarled in prison and in society like a ravenous wolf. Mexican poets showed me how to engage my memories and write of a world in transition. Me, once in a tiny little clapboard house in the high prairie of New Mexico, at the age of 4, radio tuned to a religious Mexican station, I warmed myself before Grandma's wood stove, the smell of burning cedar filling the kitchen with fragrant. I dashed outside to use the wooden outhouse where, crouched in the dark, I feared a lizard might skitter on me or a spider bite me. Dipping the washcloth in freezing water and wipe my face to wake up, it was a world I now had access to again through the Word, a world I thought had vanished, but now through the Word would last forever.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Just amazing, amazing writer, amazing man. We really appreciate having you on and sharing your words of wisdom and
Thank you.
your life journey. Before I have you head out of here, tell us about the 11th annual Jimmy Santiago Baca Writers Retreat, where people
Well,
can see you live.
yeah, it's June 28th, 29th, 30th in Albuquerque at the Museum of Art.
There it is, folks. We've been here with an amazing writer, poet. Thank you so much for being here. Stay hydrated, but I know you already know that. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. And that's a wrap, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Conversations on Aging. And we'll see you next time.